Got a very important guest today that I'm excited to introduce to the Crowdsource the Truth audience. We're joined by one of the prosecuted individuals, one of the victims of malicious prosecution on January 6th, George Tanios. George, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I hope I
Thank you.
pronounced your name correctly.
Yeah, you did. You nailed it.
Good. Now, I think a lot of people might not have heard your specific story, George. Everybody knows that the people who went to Washington, D.C. on January 6th to express our First Amendment rights and our, grievance with the government over what was, in my view, obviously a stolen election. You guys got screwed. You were among the people prosecuted. You spent time in jail. It disrupted your life, your family. Can you tell us, please, in your words, what happened?
We went there on the 6th. January 5th, we went to D.C. We got there, me and my co-defendant, Julian Cater, who is still in prison right now. He got roughly a 7-year sentence for two felonies, assaults. But January 5th, we went there. We left Morgantown. We got there at the Capitol that day. We watched the speech, and we made our way over. We got something to eat. Got there, got to the building at around 2:00, and unbeknownst to us, ahead of us, there was already like issues and skirmishes with the police, and the gates were all, the mesh fencing was cut down at that point. We had no clue that there was a melee going on ahead of us before we got there. We got to the Capitol roughly like 1:45, 1:50. I think the exact number is 1:56 p.m. But don't quote me on exact numbers because it's been about 4 years since I really, I've been dealing with this for 4 years. So
Sure.
You're my second interview in quite a while. But yes, we get there at the Capitol. Melee was going on ahead of us. My co-defendant got sprayed. We ended up splitting up. He got sprayed by the police. He came out of the crowd, happened to go into my backpack and grab a can of bear spray from my backpack. I had taken it upon myself to purchase 2 cans of bear spray and 2 small cans of like the pepper spray from my local gun shop here in West Virginia. I went to the gun shop. I asked him, I'm going to DC. I don't want to go empty-handed. I want to have some type of protection because previously, there was a bunch of issues at Trump events.
Antifa.
The Antifa crowd, the BLM crowd was beating up on Trump supporters. So, me having 3 children at the time, I just had 2 baby twins a couple months prior to January 6th. They're in my photo. A business here in Morgantown of, at the time, 16, 17 years. I just wanted to get to the Trump rally and come back home in, one piece. I was a big Trump supporter. I'd never been to a Trump rally before. So, I was like, this is the one. This is, the Super Bowl of Trump events on January 6th. So there were, go ahead.
It was. You're right.
It was, to me, it was like, this is it, and I had never been to a Trump rally. So this was like during peak COVID. I worked in a restaurant that was like high volume. We did very well during COVID. We actually thrived during COVID because of our delivery focus. So we were really booming in the business. So, I'm a very cautious person. I really try to take care of myself enough to show up to work every day, and produce a certain product for my customers, but in turn, to create a product to benefit my family and, future generations of my family. That was my thought process. So I was building a concept that I was getting ready to franchise. It's called Sandwich University. I had tweaked the business into like a virtual kitchen. I had 13 restaurants online, focused on delivery only. It was a big business. So, and I'm mentioning this a little bit in depth because that's how cautious I was in the situation. But it still didn't matter. The government was able to frame me in a certain context and go to a grand jury and indict me with 12-count felony. So back to January 6th, that all my friends had backed out, and Julian, my co-defendant, said he wanted to go still. we were planning on meeting up there that day, but his friends backed out. And he said, I'll come pick you up. Let's go. So, at that point, there's a couple signs that we shouldn't be going, and then some things are like, what? He said he'll come pick me up. It's, peak COVID time. I got fresh babies at home. My business is booming. And I see you got my reviews up.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you something, Sandwich University. Did I see this on Shark Tank or something? I've heard of Sandwich University before.
Okay. That's funny you bring that up because we were going to be on Shark Tank, but my copycats got on there.
Oh,
and
that's what I must have seen.
Yeah, it's called Fat Check.
I remember something about this, or maybe I saw you posting about Fat Jack. I saw. Anyway, sorry. Carry on with the story.
Yeah. No, so we were supposed to be on Shark Tank back in 2016. My business partner at the time missed an email, so we didn't get a chance. We got a chance to still submit our video, but it was like 3 weeks late. And sure enough, my copycat, Fat Check, out of Colorado, who's literally copied verbatim, like the whole menu, just changed the names. And they ended up getting on the show, the 10-year anniversary, last episode, last pitch. They got a deal with Mark Cuban. 3 of the 4 Sharks made a pitch to them. They struck a deal with Mark Cuban for like $300,000. It's kind of like gut wrenching, because it would have elevated my brand, pretty high. But at the same time, $300,000 for 10%. Yeah, I'm glad you put them up. These pieces of shits copied me 10 years, longer than that, 12 years now. And, it's frustrating when you like, you create something and somebody copies you,
Yeah.
But that is the highest form of flattery. And I appreciate that. So it definitely fuels me. Like even those T-shirts, they copied me. My sandwiches, my shirt said "I heart once." But it's the product. Anybody can slap chicken tenders and mozzarella sticks together, but you have to. There's something to it that we were doing much better than everyone else.
Yeah.
And
so you go there.
Long story short,
you're interfacing with the cops and all that, and then what I want to do is just compare, like, first of all, what the DOJ says happened to what you believe happened, because isn't there some sort of a plea deal involved where they kind of force you to agree even if it's not factual?
So yeah, I mean they do that all the time with people, but with me, we got there that day. Julian, we split up. Julian got sprayed by the cops. He came out of the crowd. There happened to be a GoPro next to us, and it was the group behind Convo Couch, or Convo Couch. I'm sure you know who these people are, or heard of them. It's a Convo Couch is the name of the group that was videotaping and happened to catch our interaction at January 6th. This is about like 50 to 75 feet away from the bike racks. And in that exchange, Julian went into my bag and said, give me the bear shit. They just sprayed me. Give me the bear shit. And I respond to him, hold on, not yet. It's still early. And I take it away from him. And the GoPro just happened to be right next to us and caught this little, moment where for both of us, it was like turns out, a life-defining moment for us, which I was unaware that it was at the time, or even after, for 2 months. But at the time I was like, oh man, I panicked. And what came out of my mouth was, hold on, not yet, it's still early. And the reason why I said that is because we had just walked up there. I'm not using the spray, or the spray is not intended to be used at 2 p.m. It's intended for the walk home in case we come into an interaction.
Right.
So, in the moment with him, he went into my bag, he grabbed a can of bear spray. I said, hold on, not yet. Those 2 words, not yet, are very important because that's what the government used to say that there was grounds for conspiracy, or an intent to go overthrow the government.
Right. Like you had some plan and it's not yet time to execute. Right. They twist everything you say, of course.
All right. And those 2 words literally are the 2 words that tied me into this 12-count indictment. So to my left, when the incident was happening, I could have sworn there was an FBI. I actually told him, I said, "You an FBI agent?" He was standing right next to me. He's wearing he had goggles on, a hat, and he put his goggles on. He asked me what I was doing there that day, and I was just kind of startled by his questions. while I was standing there on my phone, I was looking at the news and seeing what's happening. Julian was in the crowd. He got sprayed, comes out of the crowd, and that's when that incident happened. Well, when I took the spray away from him, I thought the catastrophe was averted. It's like a loaded gun. It's a
Right.
can of bear spray. It's animal friendly. It's not a loaded gun, but
But
in
they
my
would
mind
still
at the
charge
time,
you
that's why
with
I said,
like
hold on.
deploying a chemical or something, right? It's not legal to shoot
Yeah,
bear spray in the middle of
to
Washington,
the
D.C.,
eyes of
is
the
it?
government,
Sorry?
uh, uh, from the gun shop owner looked it up and said the bear spray is legal in DC.
Hmm. All
And
right.
so is the little can of pepper spray. The little can of pepper spray is like the one you could find in Walmart next to the Skittles
Huh.
and the Snickers bar.
Uh-huh.
So,
In New York City, though, none
so
of that stuff is legal. If you even shot somebody with hairspray, they'd get you with deploying a
oh
chemical. I
yeah,
forget exactly what it is, but New York is really tough on that.
I'm sure. Well, DC is too, but I asked the gun shop manager what was legal. What was legal. He said you could take these two. I said okay, whatever. If I need them, I'll keep them. And I've been around pepper spray, being in the late night bar business and the restaurant business for 15 years. Yeah, you got bouncers. I was a bouncer, but I owned my own bar, and just being open till 4 in the morning, you got pepper spray around, whether the cops are spraying crowds outside or whatever. So to me, it wasn't that big a deal. Just carrying it like it was normal because I have a box in my store, like literally a box of pepper spray in my store for rowdy customers. So I know it sounds crazy, but Morgantown's number one party school in the country. You got a lot of hard heads here from Jersey, New York, Philly, open till 4 in the morning. So
Yeah, you got to be ready.
yeah. So to me, I thought nothing of it. Carrying that with me. But the night before we got to DC, we left to DC, I gave Julian a little can of spray. And I said, here, put this on your keychain while I was packing my bag. And he's like, what's this for? I said, in case something happens, we split up, you got some type of protection, just in case. And, okay, whatever, put it in his pocket. He'd never been around pepper spray before. And there's Julian's gift saying, oh, thank you for sharing that. His father put out hundreds of thousands of dollars, for a tiny mistake. That's just, what the government's doing to us is ridiculous. So we go there on the 6th. The incident transpired, the time where he went to my bag, and I said, Julian, I took it away from him. To me, my heart was like, oh, thank God, catastrophe averted, because I could tell he was upset. And you could tell on camera, the government really spun that on camera, that he was visibly upset and he was bouncing around, and I had an earpiece in my ear and I was directing him. This is how they spun the story, that I was directing him to go to the front line and, he's going to be the president. No, I'm going to be the vice president and secretary of state. And we're planning. And his phone out. Time we both realized we had been there for 10 minutes, not even.
George?
People being
Whoops.
sprayed up front.
For a second. Things started getting spicy, and then what happened?
That's when everyone around us kind of realized things were getting kind of crazy up front, 50 feet ahead of us. So the reaction around the whole crowd was like, whoa, they're spraying everyone, and we're all backing up, and at that time, Julian went up front, and I'm like, I'm just going to stand right here, wait for him to come out or see what happens. And next thing you know, Lieutenant Bagshaw, who was wearing a white shirt, he's a big provocateur on January 6th. I'm surprised his name doesn't come up. I mean, it came up a lot in the beginning, but really he's a focal point of the J6 situation, because I got to watch his his body cam footage, and he sprayed probably 1,000 people that day. So, and unprovoked people. Let's be clear about that. So, and he did a lot more damage after that as well, with Victoria White, people in the tunnel. Like these guys were just, they were a mess that day. Very unprofessional, and that's really what caused January 6th. It's just unprofessionalism across the board. And an incident happened with Julian. He sprayed the cops. He comes back out. He got sprayed first. He reacted. The whole crowd reacted there. He took out the little can of spray. That's my buddy Kyle there in the photo. God, he's a good guy. I hope he
Bagshaw
gets
brought
out
this
soon.
up. Searching for Bagshaw brought this up, but I don't
Yeah.
see him mentioned here.
Well, Bagshaw really isn't an arcade, but he's the one that provoked the crowd in that incident.
He beat someone to death. That woman, right?
He beat Victoria White pretty good in the tunnel. The woman that got beat was Roseanne Boylan, and she got beat by Lila Morris. She's another cop. So,
Nothing's
the list
happening
of
to
these.
these guys.
Oh, nothing, zero. Lila
Look
Morris
at this, 2022. These guys are shooting people. It's crazy.
This is after January 6th.
Unbelievable.
He was off duty. He's off duty there.
Just shooting.
Off duty when he fatally shot a guy.
Wow.
Oh, there you go. If you scroll up two more. Right there, it says some Bagshaw. Right there. Jason Bagshaw to spray cater.
This?
2 business owners arrested for assaulting Capitol Police officer who died following being received.
Yeah, and they've tried to spin this Sicknick thing like he was killed there on the day, but isn't it true he had a heart attack or something the next day?
So he had a stroke, a blood clot, which caused 2 strokes, and he died that night or the next day. I think that's still not 100%. There is an officer that's a Trumper now that says he was dead right there on the site, on the spot. There's, it's just such a crazy story because after all this time, there's other connections with this whole situation that I learned, like, wow, there's another person from my area that was there and saw when Sicknick died. And he knew him growing up. They used to be at the same fire department together. He didn't know it was him at the time, but it's just so bizarre. So the story is a little shaky on their end still after all this time, because it first started that he died from a fire extinguisher. Then he died from bear spray. Then he died from no spray at all, because he wasn't sprayed by Julian. I mean, the odds of him being sprayed by Julian are like 1 in a million at this point, because the way the wind was at and the distance and all that, it was it's very hard. It would be very hard to prove that. Revolver News did a really good breakdown, Darren Beatty, of the whole case, and said there's just no way. And plus, it's not deadly. There's Officer Sicknick. May he rest in peace. He was a Trump supporter himself. But his family is a bunch of raging liberals. So they literally they came out after us. They called us cop killers. They called us every name in the book.
But it says here, the Capitol Police's own website. This is uscp.gov. April 19th, 2021, medical examiner finds USCP Officer Brian Sicknick died of natural causes. So how is there any question about this?
Well, for a month and a half, for 2 months, I got picked up March 14th. So for 2 months and a half, we sat in jail, almost hit with a murder charge.
Yeah. Wow. Holy cow.
But I want to get to that in a moment, because I want to go back to January 6th.
Okay, sorry.
And that moment, when I lost Julian, he went back in the crowd. He was up front. I'm standing back. The guy next to me, who I thought was an FBI agent, and the reason why is I have people that I know are agents or high up there, and he just looked like one. So Julian went back in the crowd. He got sprayed. There was a guy there, after looking at the footage, the discovery, there was a guy there that took the bike strap, like a truck strap, and wrapped it around the bike rack where Julian was, and like that circle was, like that line there. And he went back 20 feet and he pulls the bike rack from 20 feet away. And by him pulling the bike rack 20 feet away, now I didn't know this at the time because I couldn't see 50 feet ahead of me. That's where Julian was. I was all the way in the back. So the guy pulling the bike rack caused the interaction, or the cops to respond to that. And that's when all the spraying started happening. So the guy standing there is an old man. I don't know if he ever got indicted or was identified, but he was standing there. Bike rack gets kicked out, and that's what started the melee. Officer Bagshaw comes in, sprays. Julian reacts. Everybody starts reacting, and Julian sprayed the cops with a can of spray that he had in his pocket from the night before. I want to be clear about that, because what people, even in the J6 community, say, they try to say that I handed him, like I took the bear spray away from him, and then I hand him a little can. Say, oh, don't use the big can. Just don't use the can of bear spray. Here, use this little one. Go spray the cops. That wasn't the case. He had it in his pocket the night before. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't know he had it in his pocket. I didn't think nothing of it. At the time, when it was transpiring real time, I was just happy I took the bear spray away from him because it was just so spontaneous. I wasn't expecting it. I was standing there. I'm on my phone. He comes out of the crowd. They just effing sprayed me. And he goes in my backpack. I'm thinking he's grabbing a bottle of water, and he give me the bear shit. So when that pulled out, it's this big orange bottle. It's like a huge red flag. Like, holy shit. Like, hold on, not yet. Anyway,
Because
after
normally
he
you
got
have it
sprayed,
when you're hunting or something, right?
yeah, if you're hunting, or if you're in a large crowd, or it gives you like a 20-foot spray, distance. So like, if somebody's coming at you or attacking you, or you want to spray multiple people, that's what I took it for. But in my mind, I was thinking, there's no way impossible I'm going to need this. But
Yeah, I
if
hear
I
you. Just
did,
in
I
case.
want to make sure I'm safe, because
Rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
right. Like I carry here in West Virginia, or at least I did. Not anymore. I haven't carried yet. I don't need to carry. But, I've had incidents prior to that. I had my window broken on January 6th, back in December of that 2020. Somebody broke my window. I had a Trump sign up. Somebody broke my window, and had an incident with a guy who brought a gun to my shop, and I wasn't
Wow.
there. Something really stupid. And
So you mean because you're a J6er, people are now coming and harassing you
no,
and targeting?
this is before.
Okay.
This is like 2 months before. But I'm just telling you, in my mindset, I was like already feeling threatened, right. And I was like, I'm not going to DC to get my ass kicked. So otherwise, I would have just went empty-handed. It's not a big deal. I know how to fight and take care of myself. But it was one of those things. So because a lot of people say, well, why the hell would you take bear spray, and why would you even go? It's like, dude, if I can't go to DC, that's not right. And it's legal to take this. The gun shop owner told me. So I took something to protect myself. Now, had I been aware, Julian may have sprayed, and he'd never been around it. So anyway, an incident happened. He sprayed the cops. He comes back out of the crowd. And I could see he had gotten sprayed again, and I could tell he was agitated. And at that point, that's when the line broke. I didn't know this at the time, but standing there 50 feet away, the line had broke. People started pushing forward and all that. I said, Julian, come on, we're going this way. We went the opposite direction. While the incident happened, I was videotaping, and they tried to say that I was videotaping him assault these officers, but I was too far away to see him and anything happen. And when the incident happened, like let's say if I went to trial and they said, look, he was recording, I was recording and I was running the opposite direction, 50 feet the opposite way, because the cop comes out and he's spraying, Bagshaw spraying with this giant tank, fire extinguisher tank. Okay. And he sprays the whole crowd. So after a while, I kind of put two and two together, how the story how it may have gotten convoluted. My wife's texting me right now. It took 100 days for the autopsy to come out. I have a real life fact checker in my house.
For Brian Sicknick's autopsy, is that?
Yeah. So we sat in jail for 100 days waiting for this autopsy, but so Lieutenant Bagshaw was spraying with this fire extinguisher tank, and simultaneously Julian gets sprayed. The officer gets sprayed along with two others. And that's when he backed out. So I think how the story came out first, that he was hit with the fire extinguisher, is he was hit with the fire extinguisher spray. And the story, they ran with it. I think it was New York Times, and like 3 reporters just ran with the story. Officer Sicknick beat with a fire extinguisher and all this. Now, unbeknownst to me, and really anybody, Julian at the time, that, afterwards, I had no idea I was involved in anything January 6th, man. I was back at work, working my butt off, focused on the job, I had an eye on the prize here because my business was booming. So had I known I was on the FBI's most wanted, or I seen the website, or was really paying attention to the news, I would have been like, holy cow, why am I on the FBI's, most wanted? So after the incident happened, Julian comes out of the crowd. Julian, come on, let's go this way. So we walk back toward the street and the monument, far away. We were on the west side, and we walked all the way back to the street, and we're watching people go up the scaffolding, and just like, oh my God, this is crazy. So he never mentioned to me that he sprayed the cops. I had no clue. We walked around for about 2 hours. Toward the end, around 4:30, 5 o'clock, let's say, this is when they announced that we all had to go home. So, okay, I guess we're going to go home. They stole the election. Whatever happened is happening. And we came here, we saw, and we're going home. He said, let's go up on the scaffolding. So, okay, we went up on the scaffolding. There was a lot of people up there at that point. And I was still reserved about going up there because I'm not there to get in trouble. I was wearing my business logo, and I'm really proud of my business. Obviously, my copycats are on Shark Tank. I got copycats in Hollywood, California. I got people in Australia copying my sandwich, saying it's an American-inspired sandwich. I mean, literally
That's where I saw it, in L.A. Sandwich University I saw in L.A. I used to live in L.A.
So I had a kitchen out in Hollywood. Yeah, I did.
Oh, that was you.
Western and Melrose, yeah, for about a year. Yeah, that's right. I was going to open on the Strip, right on the Hollywood Strip next to the strip club.
That's where I saw it.
And, I was in Penn State for my first restaurant was in State College, and that's where the moniker, the Sandwich Nazi, came up. But I'll bring that up in a bit too. So, like I really, really cared about my business. And Julian said, let's go up on the scaffolding. I said, okay, they're all singing the national anthem. I'm like, what a moment. You know what I mean? You got the Trump flags up there. You got, blood on the pavement. It was, and I'm not saying that from a good thing or a bad thing, but you could tell it was a monumental moment without watching the news, just being there, and
definitely.
Yeah, that's the clout. We were online, delivery focused. The owner of that building is the guy that started Uber, and they pulled me out there because I have another copycat out there called Fat Sal's, and it's they've been copying me for a while too, but they're really big in Hollywood. They copied the style, the style actually, and I don't want to talk about my restaurant too much, but it's my wife, she gets on me about that. But the fat sandwich is like the quintessential sandwich of New Jersey. So French fries, mozzarella sticks, chicken tenders. I got ranked #1 sandwich in the country. My uncle's like the OG. My uncle Abdul Eid, who opened a place in New Brunswick, a new place in New Brunswick called Time Machine. Big shout out to him, Easton Avenue. I grew up in the food business. My parents owned a Lebanese restaurant for 40 years, and just, hard-nosed Americans. I was born. Parents came over in 1980 from the Civil War in Lebanon. I was born in 1980, so I'm first generation. So you're American, but you don't feel American sometimes. And, then when you're called, a terrorist after 9/11 for being dark skinned, I'm Christian, Maronite Lebanese. So we're on a fine line there. Even being in Lebanon, we're kind of
right. Yeah, wow. You're getting it everywhere, huh?
Yeah, I'm getting it everywhere. That's right.
Terrible.
So we're used to it, man. Like and I'm not the only one, but being a January 6er and a Trump supporter, then you get called a Nazi, a white supremacist, and all these like derogatory terms. And it's like, it's hard to believe that you're in this category and the media is painting you out to be this type of person or, being in this group. But then, I don't want to toot my own horn. I end up, I'm elevated to the top where now I'm a cop killer on January 6th, and it's just completely made up. And it's pretty funny. A lot of people, like you mentioned, you said earlier, you said, what you've been through and all that. Yeah, it sucks. It definitely sucks. But, I'm blessed, man. I got a beautiful family. My parents support me. My girl supports me. Beautiful kids. I got a new business that started. And, I'm probably going to end up getting back into the sandwich game at some point, but it feels different now. We had talked, because we talked about speaking back in July, there's a different vibe now. Trump won the election. Before it was, are we going to leave the country? You know, um, so it's every day is like a new twist in this saga for me, and it is for all the J6ers. 100%, 1,000%.
Let me ask you this, George, because now we're
So
hearing a lot. I'm
back to
sorry to
go
interrupt
ahead.
you, but just real quick, if I could. We're hearing a lot from Donald Trump that he's going to pardon people. And obviously, if you've lost your Second Amendment, that would be very helpful. But you've done your time in jail. How do you feel about this concept of a pardon? And when you're done with the story, I want to hear about what happened in jail. There's just so many questions racing through my mind here.
This is I could write a few different books on this, but yeah, like the pardon thing, you know, I'm at the again, I'm at the top here where I was truly framed by the government. I was 100 feet away from the building. I didn't know the police were sprayed. They took 2 words. 2 words tied me to January 6th. Like literally 2 words. I didn't destroy any property. I didn't fight with the cops. They got me on disorderly conduct and trespassing. I told my attorney, so what's a disorderly conduct for? I didn't disorderly conduct anything. Oh, well, you yelled USA, USA. All right. Now I can't say USA. So it's like I'm biting my tongue every step of the way here. But let me go back to the pardon thing. If I'm for blanket pardons, but Will from Free State Will, I know you know who Will is. He put out a nice article. I got halfway through it. I said I would read the rest of it tonight, which I think sounds good. I read halfway. Sounds reasonable. And again, I look at things from a different perspective because I was a business owner with hundreds of employees at a time. I have to manage people. I have to do this. So I look at things from a different lens than, the average person that doesn't know how to manage people or manage a business or manage public perception. Not that I'm the public perception number one, but, you know, I had a fine dining Lebanese restaurant as well. I had multiple businesses at the same time. So one place was a bar, one place was a convenience store, another place was a sandwich shop, another place was fine dining where I'm selling $150 meals. Same owner, but when I go from business to business, I'm changing my shirt and I'm acting accordingly for each business. I feel like Trump is going to act accordingly as well because blanket pardons and the screaming for yelling blanket pardons just doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
Simply
We
because
can't pardon
we
John
know
Earl Sullivan and people like that, right?
right. You interviewed him, and I got halfway through that as well. I mean, like he was there. He's a bad actor. Um, and then we have someone like Pam Hemphill. I don't want to bring up Pam right now, but she posted about me earlier, and Pam Hemphill was our MAGA granny. Um, I cried when I knew she was getting thrown in jail. Like, what is our government doing to us right now? I have this, I'm sitting in jail. They're throwing this old lady in California in jail. It's like, what is happening to us? This is after January 6th. And, now she seems like she hates Trump with a passion. Should she get a pardon? She doesn't want a pardon. So, and
Wow.
is a pardon even the right term or is it the right fix to happen? What happened to us? I'm
Because
going
it
to
sort
leave
of
that. I'm going to leave.
acknowledges something, right? If there's a pardon, it's almost like we
Right.
need to unwind this in some different way.
Right. Right. So the
A pardon
terminology
lends some
has to be
credibility to the
clear. Like,
charges.
the blanket pardons for all. Right. You're a man of words, of good words. And when I follow you, and I don't follow you every day, but sometimes when I catch you post, I'm like, oh, I like how this guy talks and what he's mentioning, and very concise with his words and the terminology because words matter. Okay. And sometimes when we put a post on X, we're shit posting or trolling someone. Yeah, it doesn't matter there, but words do matter. The government proved that to me. That my 2 words were taken out of context, and they were able to spin a 12-count indictment on me. So, Revolver News actually put out an article saying, Ray Epps was at the Capitol for 2 days, encouraging people to take over and literally saying, we're going to take over the Capitol. We're doing all this. And he wasn't charged for months or for years, or barely charged at all. But George Tanios said, hold on, not yet. And he gets a 12-count indictment, and it's really all to fit the narrative. So unbeknownst to me, we'll go back to January 6th, unbeknownst to me, Julian had sprayed the cops. We walk back up there, we sing the national anthem, we take 2 pictures, and we start walking home. We're walking home, you know, you could tell it was one of those special day. It was like, wait a minute, this is crazy. You know, God help us, what's going to happen? Joe Biden just won the election, or, you know, he's going to be certified. So we get in the car, and I told Julian, I said, man, if you would have sprayed those cops, we'd be in deep shit. And, you know, he never mentioned that he sprayed the cops.
Wow.
So in a sense, he saved me, because had I known, it would have put me in a tough spot and said, yeah, you got to turn yourself in, or, you know, we could have rectified the matter. As look, man, I would have seen us on the website, on the FBI website. But, you know, he never mentioned it. I thought nothing of it. I thought we made it there. We got home safe, went back to work. 2 months later, they're storming my house.
With your kids there?
Capitol Police, FBI, local SWAT, with my kids there. My twins were sleeping. My wife and my son was still up. My oldest son, he was 4 at the time. I hear banging on the door, and I'll get to it. Last night I heard some banging on my door, and I'll tell you why later, but I thought I was getting raided again. You know, they're banging on my door on March 13th, 14th, and the dogs are going nuts. I go to the door. You know, as I'm on my way to the door, I pull my gun out. And I take it out of the backpack. It was an unpleasant knocking. Pop, 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 pop. It's like, holy shit, you know, who's knocking on my door? So I pull my gun out, and I'm walking to the hallway, you know, down the hallway to get to my door. And as soon as I turn to look, and I hear FBI, she opened the door ahead of me, FBI. Oh, I put my gun back in the backpack, like right there by the door. Holy cow, I put my hands up. They come into my house. I'm like, what is going on here? She's looking, my wife's looking at me. And Yogananda Pittman, Capitol Police Chief, walks in. Two other women with her, a bunch of people. And I didn't know who she was at the time. I just saw Capitol Police. I saw the hat, white shirt, you know, red dots on me. Oh, you know, step outside. We get outside.
Red
come outside. I was
dots,
about to take a
laser
shower,
sights
so.
on you? Wow.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm surprised they didn't bust the back doors. Apparently there was helicopters outside. It was like
Wow.
10, 15.
It's a little ridiculous, no?
A Sunday night. Well, yeah, obviously. I didn't, you know, I thought I was being punked. You know, imagine like, you know, it's a Sunday night. You just had a nice day with your family. It was our 10-year anniversary that night. So, you know, we're getting kids ready to go to sleep, watch a movie, have a glass of wine.
They're treating you like
And,
Pablo Escobar or something.
oh, man, it was like out of a movie. I thought I was Tony Soprano. I'm wearing a robe, you know. They got my hands up, you know, and I'm just like, why am I being cuffed right now? Well,
And you've never been arrested at all before, right? No kind of problems with the law.
Never been arrested.
I mean, you could tell by talking to you. You're a regular guy, family man, businesses. This is terrible, George. Sorry, please keep going.
You know, it was surreal. When they bring me back in the house, I said, where's the warrant? I said, why are you storming my house? And I saw the Capitol Police, and like literally the only words that came out of my mouth was, where's the warrant? And is this what Joe Biden's doing to Americans now? Because I saw the Capitol Police, and I'm thinking like, holy shit, why am I being arrested? I was on the bleachers, but there was like 30,000 people ahead of me. You know, maybe 20,000, let's say 10,000, whatever. I was like, there's no way I can get in trouble for being up here singing the national anthem. You know, I took it akin to like storming the basketball court after a championship game, you know, type thing. So I didn't think I would get in trouble for that. But when they stormed the house, that was the only thing that was like, man, I was at the Capitol. I'm being arrested for that. So when I said, where's the warrant? They said, are you ready to talk? I said, the warrant's being printed. We don't have it. It's being printed. So are you ready to talk? Just like that. I said, talk about what? You know, F you people. Amanda, call my attorney. Just like that. And they said, all right, take him away. Boom.
So no warrant.
Dragged me out of the house. No warrant. Zero.
Wow.
They questioned my wife for 3 hours till like 2 a.m.
What was happening with the kids? The cops were with the kids?
The kids were sleeping. My twins were sleeping. They went into their room. They like lifted the mattress while they were sleeping. And these kids like didn't want to sleep at the time. You know, I guess they were teething, or they just gave us a hard time sleeping. But apparently, you know, they stayed in my house. They went through my house. They went through my business. They said, give us the key to the restaurant. After I got in the car, I said, I'm not, she gave him the key. They interviewed her for like 3 hours. She, if, the first thing they say is don't talk till the lawyer's present. I didn't say a word. She talked for 3 hours. They were asking her about 2%ers and 3%ers, and she's like, "No, we use 1% milk here." That's how lost she was. And they were trying to paint me as like a wife beater, and all this crazy shit. And she's like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I don't know. He didn't say anything happened. All that. I had like a massage table. We have a massage table in our bedroom. And they even asked her, and I'm sorry, baby, I'm bringing this up, but they asked her like, "Oh, he makes you give him massages." Like they were trying to paint me in like this like aggressive, and I could be aggressive. I don't want to, don't mistake my kindness for weakness type thing, but that I'm some type of like possessive father, and I hate the government, and I'm going to overthrow the government. And I make my wife stay at home and work. We had twins. I don't know how the word got out, or people started going to the media and saying his wife never leaves the house. It's like peak COVID. We got twin kids. I'm working 100 hours a week. Like, I'm not going to put my wife out in the street, like, so she can get sick. And then you miss the baby's birth. That was a big thing back then, because if you had COVID 2 weeks prior, you're not allowed in the hospital. So anyway, but, it was such a weird time. But, after they storm my house, they take me right to the hole down in North Central. And the people that drove me there, they knew me. I was a pretty popular guy here in town as far as my businesses. And they were like, "Look, man, we've never arrested anyone like this. Yeah, we know we know you don't have any charges, but we got the call from DC, and this is what we're doing." I was like, "Holy shit, man, this is nuts. Like, are they going to tell me what I did?" And I said, "I guess you'll figure this all out tomorrow." Okay.
Wow. So wait a minute. You said they put you in the hole? They put you just right directly into solitary confinement in this thing?
Not the first 2 days. The first 2 days I was in a cell with other people, but once the word got out who I was or what I was being charged with, it was like the next morning. And then the people in the jail found out what had happened. But this is before I knew, because I don't have access to a TV, and this is during COVID. So we're in these cells. You're not allowed out of the cell because of COVID. So I was with someone else at first. This guy was like a drunk mess, man. He drove me nuts, dude. I could not hear about it kind of took my mind away from it. Listening to this other guy's like, woes that night, because I was like, first night in jail. I don't know why I'm here. This guy's crying that he beat his wife and she made him do it. And I'm just like, dude, shut that. Like, I let him speak for like an hour. And I'm like, dude, you got to shut the fuck up. Like, excuse me. Like, it's over, bro. I don't even know why I'm here right now. Had I known that I was being accused of being a cop killer, I would have punched him in the head or something. I'd be like, give me that pillow, or you sleep on the floor, I would have milked that. So, I'm laughing now, but at the time it was just such a
nightmare.
surreal moment. It was a surreal moment.
Was the food terrible and totally uncomfortable and cold, and could you sleep at all?
I at the time I had like a neck problem, and I ended up in the hospital. I had like a pinched neck in my nerve in my neck. It cost me thousands of dollars to get this repaired. And I was just coming on the heels of it, and I have to sleep with like a certain pillow and a certain place. So then I go right into jail. I'm like sleeping on the floor, no pillow, no nothing. I was eating good. I had a nice menu, and my wife cooking for me all the time. Then you go right to jail food. When they say chow, they call it chow in the morning. Chow, 4:00, and they slide this grits and gravy or whatever it is, and it was unique, man. But honestly, God got me through it. So, at the time it was pretty stressful, but every day something new would push me forward and say, this is going to work out. So when I get to DC, when I get to North Central, about 2 days into it, then they move me into the actual hole. So I'm by myself with my own cell, and then there's all these loonies in the other bin. But the COs had eaten at my restaurant, so they were like, "Man, what are you doing on the news?" All this. I'm like, I didn't realize. It took a couple days for me to find out what had happened.
Uh-huh.
And when I got my court-appointed attorney, because I didn't have 100,000. I was getting calls from like Chris Brown's attorney. These Hollywood celebrity attorneys were calling my wife.
Wow.
100,000, 200,000 to represent me.
That's just a start.
Just a start.
You'd have to sell your house and everything.
Yeah, I'm like, Amanda, there's just no way. We're tell the judge, court-appointed attorney. So they gave me an attorney, two attorneys, and she came in and she said, look, she looked at me, I'm cuffed and we're in this office. She goes, they said you killed a cop. I just looked at her, I was like, what? They're saying you killed a cop. At that point, like you still kind of like, what is happening? But when the reality of it all, when you're cuffed to a chair and she's telling you and you're waiting for this moment for 3-4 days, whatever days it took to meet her, I almost had a heart attack. So you got the wrong guy. I don't know what you're talking about. She could tell right away that something was wrong with the story. There's my old home right there. And, I said, something ain't right. He said, well, you sprayed a can. This other guy, Julian, sprayed the cops. I'm like, holy cow, this is like one big mix up. So, okay, well, we're going to get you through this and we're going to see how this plays out. So, okay. So you spend a couple more days in jail, a couple more weeks, and you wait for this hearing. You get your first bond hearing. You're thinking you're going to get out because per the Bail Reform Act, I didn't have any priors. I hear my daughter screaming over there. I didn't have any priors, no issues, so I should have gotten out. And I get to the bond hearing, and these two prosecutors start claiming that I was planning to overthrow this is when you start hearing it all. And it's just like, holy cow, I can't believe they're saying this. And you're looking at your attorneys and you're on the screen and you're in an orange jumpsuit and you're just like, what the heck? Like, this is all a lie. Like, none of this is making sense, what they're saying. And then the judge, it was like these two like witches. Now, I don't want to call them, they were prosecutors, but they looked like witches. Dolled up hair. They looked like they could seduce anyone. And they're looking at the judge and they're saying all these words and the judge is just eating it all up. And when it's his turn to speak, you guys tried to overthrow the government. What you did that day destroyed the sanctity of America. And he's just spitting the shit out. And it's just like, wow, you got this all wrong. Who got this wrong? Either me, the person that's being convicted, or the judge. Turns out the judge is Joe Manchin's like first cousin or second cousin. So he's a Democrat shill all the way. And then the reality of it really starts sinking in that they're not going to let you go because it's going to change the narrative. So I get sent back to jail. And this is when things really start sinking in. And honestly, it was like more fear factor than it was like reality. Because I was like, oh my God, I'm in jail. This is terrible. But, it's just four walls, or, it's different when you're, I don't want to say quote unquote innocent because I knew I was innocent, but, you'll get through it type of thing. So the attorneys looked at me and said, look, this is just round one. You got 12 rounds to go. And, you're like, holy cow, how much more can I take? But as you get through the process, you realize, wow, I can really like handle this. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And that's, the punishment.
Did you make any friends in jail? Any friends at all?
Yeah, the first couple days I was in the hole, so I didn't, but talking through, the walls, other people. So yeah, a couple guys would ask me like my food review, what I thought of the food every meal, because they knew I was in the restaurant business. You're sitting in the hole and there's like a CEO sitting at a desk and there's, 25 cells and they're all screaming at him. And I'm sitting there like, this is crazy. But the CEOs were like, yeah, I used to eat your fat sandwiches at your bar and at your restaurant. He's like, I used to get that. It made me laugh because he's like, I used to get that big sandwich. I'm like, which one? The fat bitch? And that was like our number one seller. And he's like, yeah, that's the one, the fat bitch, And you just like laugh and you're like, oh man, I can't believe this is happening. And then another moment, guys would come to my window because like my window was glass, but the back end of my window was like to this like little gated yard. And I guess they found out which window I was in, and guys would come and knock on my window. You okay in there, sandwich Nazi? And
that was the guards.
You killed that cop. You killed that cop, man. Fuck, excuse me. F these cops and all. And these are other criminals that like really hate the police, and they're telling you like, you're like a hero to them. And I'm just like, oh man, I really didn't do it.
And like, yeah, we know.
yeah. This one guy was like, hey man, I was I was Boston George's cellmate for like 20 years. The guy from what's the show? The movie Blow. I think it was
George
Blow.
George Jung?
George Jones. So that was like an honor. He's like, yeah, man, we're rooting for you and all that. So, every day you get that moment. It's like, all right, this is, we'll move through it. Yeah, that guy. Yeah.
Huh.
So, and this is why I wanted to talk to you. Like, I like the way you dig through it, and people that are following it can kind of like read and see like, oh, okay, like where it's going. So it's not just me making this stuff up.
Yeah.
So yeah, so after my second bond hearing, I get sent to DC. Actually, it was the first bond hearing. I get sent to DC. And they said, my attorney said, you're going to go to DC with the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. And to me, like, I didn't know any Proud Boys. I didn't know any Oath Keepers. And I'm just like, oh man, this is going to be like pretty wild, And my biggest fear growing up was if I ever got arrested, I was afraid I'd never get out because I'm not the kind of person to like, back down from someone. And, once you get into that system, knuckleheads will come at you, whatever. So that was my
Yeah.
biggest fear. And I was worried about that. But, then they said, we're going to send you to DC. Okay. They tried to send me to Oklahoma, Con Air, fly me out to DC. Fly me out to Oklahoma, then fly me to DC. My attorneys put up this huge fight over that, saying this is ridiculous. You're punishing him. Diesel therapy. They did this to a lot of J6ers. Fortunately for me, I was like a 1-2 move, probably because of my charges and the magnitude of them. They just wanted to get me to DC and put me in this jail and run the story. So I get to DC. I spend one night there with about, let's say, 12 other guys. I think it was 10 to 12 other guys. This is the first, round of J6ers, maybe the second round of like the first few. They had 2 pods emptied for January 6ers, C2A and C2B. We found this out later from the COs that they knew that they were going to arrest all these January 6ers. They cleared out these 2 pods and prepared them for Trump supporters. So I get there the first night. At that point, I was just happy to be interacting with other people and other Trump supporters at that point because like, I knew I was getting in there. I actually walked in there and said, honey, I'm home, because I knew they were all waiting for, like, it was all over the news. There were all the
It's
J6s
amazing that you
there.
kept a sense of humor through this all.
I had no choice, man. I had no choice.
Yeah. It's a good attitude.
And yeah, I appreciate that. And for me, like it was a different experience because I was a workaholic. So yeah, that's my guys right there. I see Tim there. I see Jeff McKellop. So the guy up on the top, Jordan Miggs. I love all these guys, man. I really do. And I'll get to that. There's a lot of infighting between us all. He's the man. I love that guy, man. My fellow Jerseyan, but we don't talk right now because of situations. But the guy in the middle with the middle finger, I spent the first night in DC with the first group. The next day, they pulled everyone out except for me and him, Jeff McKellop. Jeff was on detail that day. There was like 2 guys that were going around sweeping and, passing out our food trays and all that. The CO says, everybody clear out your pods, clear out your cells. You're going to C2, you're moving next door, except for Jeff and George. And at that point, I hadn't showered. I got a full beard. I look like a jihadi terrorist. That's the first thing Jeff said to me. He's like, you don't belong here, man. You're a jihadi terrorist. What are you doing here? And I'm just like, the other guys all they had like, they gave Jeff like ramen and candy bars and all this, snacks that I was able to eat. Because for a month and a half, I was eating, chow. I couldn't get commissary in
Wait,
West
who gave
Virginia.
him that? The guards? Who gave him all that stuff?
The other inmates, they were getting commissary, and they were like, here, everybody, when we got somebody new, because it would take like a week or 2 to get commissary, like, snacks, food, shampoo, different stuff. And we would just juice up the first person, the next person that came in. So we would
So
all
this
like,
is at least an upgrade. You've got some camaraderie there and everybody
massive
a little
upgrade.
better.
Well, like, again, the next day, they said, everybody get out except for Jeff and George. And Jeff comes over to my cell about an hour later. He's got the broom in his hand. He's looking at me. He's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Dude, I just got here. I don't know what you're, what do you mean?" He's like, "Where did everybody go?" And I'm like, I don't know. You tell me, man. I just got here. And I'm thinking, at that point, I'm on high edge. I don't know who's who. I don't know who's a friendly and who's not. The CEO comes around. His name's Abdul. And my uncle's name's Abdul, the guy that started the fast sandwich game. And I told him, I said, "Hey, my uncle's name's Abdul." And he looked at me, he was like, "Eh." He said, "Come out of your cell, because the CEO can call." He was a boss over there. He said, "You guys can hang out." And honestly, this was the first time I was out of his cell for like a month and a half.
So he's being nice to you.
He was being nice to both of us. And even Jeff was
That's
like, "What's going
interesting.
on?" Because there was only two of us.
Seems like a trick.
Well, it did. Oh, 100%. I thought Jeff was there to kill me.
Right.
I thought Jeff was going to kill me. And that top post that I have pinned is, I'll get to that later because if we have time. But so me and Jeff, we ended up spending about a month, under a month, just me and him, 50 cells in DC.
Wow.
And
wait a minute. They've got you guys in basically an empty prison, just the two of you?
In a pod. A pod is 50 cells, 2 floors. Each pod has 2 bunk beds. So it was a pod for 100 people, and it was just us two.
Why did they do that?
We learned that was the quarantine pod. So whenever somebody new came in because of COVID, was coming in from other prisons or other jails, they would put them there with us, and they would be quarantined in their cell.
They're trying to give you COVID. They want you to get sick and die.
Well, they would have loved that, but they would it was even worse because they put you in a cell that you can speak out of. The air is all the same oxygen, but you're in the cell for 24/1 or 2 weeks at a time. Like you couldn't leave the cell for 2 weeks, till you were COVID safe,
Oh my God.
But even that, we couldn't even get out. And the one CO and the other COs, it was just me and Jeff. So they were kind of friendly to us. They let us use the phones. They let us take showers when we wanted. I mean, friendly isn't that friendly, but friendly enough to we're able to walk out of our cells, shower, within a 2-hour window rather than you got 15 minutes to shower, stuff like that. We're able to use the microwave without permission, when you have 100 people in there, it's a big difference.
Right. And also when you have everything taken away from you, a tiny little thing like that is like a huge, it's like Christmas or something.
Yeah, big time. It was something to talk about. You finally got some coffee, we finally got some hair cream so we could shave our heads.
Wow.
Again, for me, it was a different experience because I was a workaholic and I never got time off. And the one event that I went to was this January 6th rally. So 2 months later, I was still working like a dog. Then I'm in a cell where it's just relatively quiet,
And what do you do all day? You're just sitting around.
You get your hands on books. Yeah, you get your hands on some books. Eventually, we were able to get a tablet with law stuff on there. You could play a couple video games. But, again, those are things that could be taken away from you. And they were taken away when we all got back together. About a month and a half later, they ended up, after my bond got denied again, Julian ended up in the DC jail, and then more people started coming. And that's when, we were able to see the news, how many people were getting arrested at the time, what the news and the media was spinning about us, that, we assaulted, first thing everybody said was, "Oh, you hit the cop with the fire extinguisher." I'm like, what is everybody talking about? None of this makes any sense to me. Yeah, that's the Patriot. There was 2 pods there. That are leaving more radicalized than ever. I mean, it's just so bizarre, man. Honestly, all the guys that were in there, man, were all good, good dudes. Maybe there was 1 or 2. There is 1 or 2 questionable people. I'll let somebody else sort that out. I don't want any problems with people. A beautiful daughter. My daughter is a blessing, man. I wasn't there to start problems. I wanted to get in and get out. And I always felt like I was going to get out. No matter what they tried to spin, I was like, I'm going to get out one of these days. My wife wasn't driving me crazy. I was getting support from the American people. Enough support to just, literally just pay the bills. It's not like,
That's
we
a
made.
great wife that she stayed with you. I mean, your family had to be incredibly disrupted by this whole thing.
Oh, I mean, we 20 employees overnight gone. My
Oh,
family, my mom, devastated by what happened. But it's different when, if you went there and did something stupid that day. I could see her saying, "You know what, you're an idiot. I can't believe you went." But she gave me her blessing to go, and I always kind of hung that over her head. Like, hey, you said I can go. What's the worst that can happen? I went, and what's the worst that could happen? Definitely happened. But
it's like famous last words, right?
oh man, it's something else. So, um, so yeah, so if your wife's giving you a hard time or your family's turning their back on you, that had to have been very stressful for January Sixers to the point where some committed suicide. And
Yeah.
I feel very
You have to
terrible
know
about that.
guys who did that, right? Did you experience guys who were having that in jail? The wife left them and the family thought they
Well,
were
oh yeah,
idiots.
oh yeah, oh yeah, very stressful for them. And but you put up Kyle earlier to do with the blood on his face. His wife did the same thing. She packed him lunch. She booked him his hotel, and so he knew he wanted to go, but when he got arrested, his wife bailed on him. And many of them did, and there's some that stuck by them. And I can list multiple people that were their families literally turned their backs on, and they almost one person ended up in jail because he had nowhere to go. He said, I'd rather be in jail for January 6th because he doesn't have a family. The government said you have to live with your parents. It's not going to happen. Brandon Fellows, I know he had a big issue at home, and it's been an issue for true Trump supporters from 2016. Like, if you're a real Trump supporter, were you a Trump voter from 2016 or?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're in a different breed. There's a lot of people that voted for Hillary and they became Trump supporters, and there's people that whatever. But when you're a Trump supporter from the start, you've been tolerating the Nazi, the whole whatever that Hillary Clinton ran is, where she called us all deplorables, and we've been called that from day one, and we've been dealing with that for 9 years now. So that just rolls off the shoulder. But other people, have it really difficult, and my heartfelt prayers for all them. And I try to, I have an open line to all the J6ers because I know where my position was as a J6er, and I want everyone to know that if I can get through this, or I can still kind of laugh about this, they're going to be okay. There's no reason to, it's just life. There's more important things than this earth, and it's your soul. And it's been a difficult journey, knowing other January Sixers went through it very difficult, where I feel like I went through it, different. So I was very fortunate and very blessed. And now, I have a beautiful daughter. After I took a plea deal, I knew I was having a daughter, and I didn't want to take a plea deal. But had I gone to jail, I wouldn't have had my daughter. So, after this 12-count indictment looming over our heads for about 100 days, I'm in jail with the other January Sixers, and I want to make something clear, which I've never said. I don't know. I don't hear any other J6ers like the first J6ers. We debated whether we were going to be J6ers or 1-6ers. We thought 1-6er sounded better. It was more like,
It's all numbers.
1%. Yeah, it's all numbers. 1-6er is cool, like 1%er, and like the Hell's Angels. We really, we were badasses. We're in jail. We're in DC. They're calling us every name in the book every day. So this wasn't like a one article to our. This is DC News every day has one of us up there, and we would compete like every day. Like, oh, they said I was the spoken to meal, or you were the spoken to beer, you were the spear, the tip of the spear, and it's just. we had two black guys in there. We had a Hispanic guy, two Jewish guys, Puerto Rican, two Lebanese guys, and we're all like, they're calling us white supremacists.
It's
Crazy, man.
ridiculous. Well, so
It
okay,
really, it
this
really
is the
is.
plea deal here. So this speaks to their version of what happened. And so, what did they compel you to plea to here?
So yeah, so I had a 12 count indictment, 12 count felony. After I won my third appeal, or my third appeal, my final appeal to the Court of Appeals in D.C. 3-0 ruled in my favor that Judge Thomas Hogan
Hmm.
clearly ruled in error and left me in
Wow.
jail.
Wow.
This is on his Wikipedia page, so he's marked for life on that.
Huh.
And this guy's been there for 40 some odd years.
Hmm.
So when I won my appeal, mid-July 2021, Julian lost his. He filed for his appeal first. He lost his. I'm waiting for my response. You know, the attorneys basically, when they file the appeal, it's like, okay, they're like, these are the facts. We need 3 judges to rule on this rather than just the one. And the 3 ruled in my favor. They ruled against his
En
because he was
banc
on
review.
camera. Yeah, on the review.
Yeah.
So I was released the day before my 40th birthday. My wife picks me up. Yeah, and you could scroll down to the bottom. This old fart, and you know, my family had a restaurant in New Jersey for 40 years next to the courthouse,
Huh.
and anytime I went to my parents' restaurant, it was like City Hall. You know, so I grew up around like judges and attorneys, like guys that are on TV, and my parents knew them right there, United States versus George. So like when people say judge or whatever, some people might get scared. To me, it's like they're just regular people, you know. And he might be
Neighborhood
wearing the
guys.
cloak, but in my mind, it's like, even though my life was in his hands, you know, I just looked at him as a flawed man, just like I am, you know. And he was flawed, and he he clearly ruled in error, left me in jail, and so did the first judge. So I sat in jail for roughly 6 months against my constitution, you know, my First Amendment, you know, my Bill of Rights, the Bail Reform Act. And when I got out, the first thing I did, I was expecting all these interviews. You know, people were like, because whenever we were getting out, a couple of the other guys got out before me, it was only like 2 or 3. So, you know, which was a monumental moment because we were all sitting in there and we're waiting for people to come out. Or we're hearing people are coming out. So me and Jeff are in there by ourselves and we hear the guys next door singing the national anthem, you know, at around, you know, at first it was random. And it was random. And then we thought that that was a sign that somebody was getting out. They were all singing the national anthem because somebody got out. So me and Jeff were like, "Oh man, somebody got out over there, you know, on the other side of the wall because there's 2 pods." Then we realized that they were just singing it to sing it, and then it became a nightly thing. But our spirits were high for this country, despite what the government was doing to us. Jeff McKellop was a Green Beret, served this country decades, was a weapons specialist, went there that day on the fly, got caught up, PTSD, whatever happened. This guy served this country in the military, and this country is doing, and the country's doing this to him. So to me, I was like, I'm just average Joe Schmo. I'm putting myself in his shoes, and my
That's
business
particularly
partner,
bad. What
yeah,
they
my
did to
business
him.
partner at the time, his dad died in 9/11 at the Pentagon. And the judge didn't care what he had to say as a character witness for me, because he was supposed to come with me that day. He said, Judge said, were you with him that day? He said, no. He said, well, we don't know what his demeanor was. Despite my business partner going to Afghanistan, combat
Wow.
vet, dad dying in 9/11, judge didn't care what he had to say. And, going back to being a Lebanese first generation, you don't feel American. And then you didn't join the military because I almost joined after 9/11. And then you get thrown in jail for January 6th. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm definitely American now. You guys want an American bad hat. You got one. So I'm taking it as a badge of honor, and the Lebanese community really came out and supported us, the Lebanese Trumpers.
Hmm.
We have a Lebanese in the Trump family now. His son-in-law, Mary Tiffany, they're about to have a baby. God bless them.
So, George, let me ask you about this right here, because I see you're beefing on Twitter, on X here with Adam Dope Kinzinger. What is going on with his Slava Ukraine, and he's laughing at you?
Oh my God. So I picked up this meme, which I've never used before, like the meme of the black guy that's well hung. And people, I've seen it before. I've never used it, and I saw
Okay.
somebody post it. I was like, oh, I definitely have to share this. So I shared it a few times, and then Pam Hemphill reshared Adam Kinzinger his video, and I read it, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna post it. I said, hey Adam, explain this to me, and I tagged him, and he responded, ha ha ha. Well, last night I was laughing so loud, my neighbors called the cops. They thought somebody was being hurt here. The cops showed up. I hear somebody knocking on my window. They're like, "Is everything all right?" I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "Your neighbors heard screaming." I was like, "That was me laughing."
Wow. Man, you're amazingly calm. I think if my house ever got raided by the cops and then they started knocking
Oh,
on the window, I might have a heart attack or something like that.
you see, like, I've been around police. I almost became a cop myself. My cousins were in corrections. I have a lot of cop friends. So like they don't, I've had many interactions with the police through my businesses, especially in Morgantown, but it's always been on good terms. You know, you know, somebody comes in to start a problem in your business, they're drunk. We're dealing with a lot of
Right.
alcohol, big party scene, a lot of drugs, within the community. So they end up at your restaurant late night. It's the after hours scene. So my interactions with the police and here in this town never had a problem. Um, so, when you're innocent, you're not afraid, you know, and, despite losing everything, it's still kind of like, it is.
You,
If we had this conversation in July, it would be different. But now we feel vindicated.
well, right.
Trump won. Everybody sees. Go ahead.
No, no, yeah, the Trump one. I mean, that's the thing. You do have an incredibly positive attitude. And I was going to ask you, what do you see happening for you next? I mean, you're building back your business. What is it that you're doing? And what will happen now that Trump becomes president? How will the pardon help you? What do you expect to happen next?
I'm right. I started an online resale business that I love. I sell used clothes, men's clothing, and women's, mostly. Now I'm getting into some antiques that I found, and it's been pretty good. Fortunately for me, the platform that I'm on did not kick me off.
Uh-huh.
Whereas Lyft, for instance, after driving for Lyft for a year or being on the platform, driving on and off, they kicked me off last 3 months ago. They reran my
How is that
background.
fair, though? How can someone, I mean, setting aside January 6th, if somebody goes to jail, does the time, comes out, and then now Lyft just says, oh, well, we don't like the crime, so you can't work for us. That's crazy. You're supposed to be rehabilitated, right?
Yeah, it's I mean, Lyft is the worst. Is the least of our problems. We got kicked off of every site. The banks are debanking us. Credit card companies. I know a couple of the guys I was in jail with. Their whole portfolio was sold off.
What?
Uh,
From,
yeah,
just stolen from them.
stock market.
But
They had to
they
close it
own
up.
that. They just take it and,
Me- Merrill Lynch, all these stock agent, brokerages dropped us because we were insurrectionists.
crazy.
My bank. I have a bank, People's Bank out of Ohio, tried to drop my mortgage that I've had with them for 10
Whoa.
years without issue. Oh yeah, I
Whoa.
can't even. I'm red flagged in the system, and can't even communicate with the bank. After a firm response from me, I didn't even need my attorneys to respond to this. I responded firmly enough to where they backed off, but I'm flagged in the bank. The only way I can communicate with the bank is through an attorney, their attorney.
Wow.
And even they know in the bank, like, wow, man, something's not right here. When you get a letter, and in the letter it says, because of your activities in the insurrection, and again, I'm in a different
But there was
category.
no insurrection. It's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
George. Well, listen, George,
Uh,
we've been going for quite a while here, and I want to make sure we don't
have we?
exceed people's
Yeah,
attention span. You're certainly welcome to come back to the show anytime, but I think it
I would
might
love
be
to.
good if we kind of maybe, wrap up this part of the story, and then you and I can continue speaking. You can come back to the
Yeah, absolutely.
show and individual details that could probably, I mean, I'm sure you, as you said, you've got material for books, for ages. But this online business, when where you're selling things, can we direct people to that? Is there any way that I can help you get back on your feet here?
I'm okay. You could just follow me on X if you enjoy my post. Maybe I'll post a link to my store. I did a couple weeks ago. I'm trying to keep it low key because all these lefties will start reporting you. You know?
Exactly right, man.
Like I want to start a YouTube channel. But I'm afraid YouTube would kick me off. You
Right.
know,
Well,
and
you're
there's
doing
no
well
point.
on X. Stay with X. People should definitely follow you there at
I think.
Real George Tanios, Tanios. People can follow George on there, and he is making a lot of good posts. He and I have been in communication. I'm so glad that you came on the show today. And you know what? You're an amazing guy, George. This is really the first time that you and I have spoken, outside of just DM. And I mean, you've got such a positive attitude, such a beautiful wife and family. God bless her for staying with you and supporting you and your kids and everything. I mean, I love how you're looking on the bright side. You're really an inspiration, man. I'm glad I've met you.
No, I appreciate that, man. I know other January Sixers are watching me to some extent, and some of them might not be as positive, but
Right.
we're in a happy place right now. But we need to prepare ourselves for anything, and that's spiritually, in person, and your families most importantly. But I do want to talk about how the government ended up dropping the 12 charges and
Yeah,
ended up
let's hear that.
superseding my indictment. So after 2 years, and me literally telling my attorneys there's no way I would plead to anything, they finally come up, and this is where the story is a little bit gray because it wasn't written out properly. The government basically set me up and said, we're not going to give Julian Cater a plea deal unless you take a plea deal.
What?
And had we had gone to trial, he was looking at a minimum of 2 assault charges, and that would be a 20-year charge. When the government said, we're going to drop all the charges, we're going to supersede your indictment, give you 2 more charges, trespassing and disorderly conduct, which I wasn't charged with to begin with. So the initial 12, I'm ready to go to trial. My team of attorneys, I had about 7, I think I had 10 at the end, different specialists, camera, video, attorneys lined up to help me beat the DC jury. And when they said, we're going to drop all the charges, $500 fine, time served. And my attorney showed up out of nowhere. He said, we have paperwork. We need to talk to you. They sat me down, and it took them hours to convince me to take this damn plea deal. I didn't want to hear for 2 years. As I'm going to jury, I got a new suit every day. We're going in there like John Gotti. We're beating this shit.
But how can they put, Julian's fate, how do they link the two? Like, why is your plea deal linked to his? That doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Well, because we're co-defendant, and without me, they can't get Trump.
What do you mean?
And we're being sued for $30 million now, and basically all these charges are to get Trump and to make Trump look like insurrection.
Wait, who's suing you for $30 million?
The Officer Sicknick's family.
Oh.
In the wrongful death. After they dropped all the charges, we're still being sued for $30 million. So when they came to me and said, we're going to drop all the charges, I said, I still want to go to court because I had attorneys and they were pro bono. So I'm like, you know what are the, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to really take it all the way. And when they added that whole Julian stipulation that we're not giving him a plea deal, I mean, this is how my attorneys presented it to me. Maybe they colored it a little differently to get me to take this plea deal because they wanted to win on their end because it's a win for them. But they also weren't huge Trump supporters, so maybe I got played a little bit into taking it to the plea deal. But your family's crying, your mom's on the phone, get this over with, this and that, and plus the 13-year additional for my co-defendant who may have made a mistake. It was a 10-second mistake. He shouldn't be sitting in jail for more than 6 weeks, 5 weeks, anything. Fair, equal treatment of the law, under the law. And I took the plea deal. And it was a tough pill to swallow, but the birth of my daughter really offset that, where I'm like, okay, I can live with it. But a lot of people in the J6 community want to say that I'm a rat. I worked with the government to get this plea deal. He's doing my time. Couldn't be further than the truth. I didn't know an incident happened that day. I was unaware he sprayed the cops. I had nothing to do with any of it. I thought I saved the day. I took the bear spray away. In my mind that day, I was like, oh my God, I saved us. And, here we are. I'm done with probation. I was fortunate enough to start this new business. Trump won the election. And the frustration it's not about Trump. It's not like, oh, we're these loyal Trump supporters and all that. Well, no, I'm a constitutionalist, I would say. The rule of law, clear business practices, all this. But the world is so gray right now that, it's so crazy. So, huge Trump supporter, but he is not my savior. So, I'm not counting on him for a pardon. I'm not counting on him for anything. Do I want him to be my president? Absolutely.
He does say that he's going to pardon everybody the first hour. He was reiterating that again today. I can tell from this picture you were at the Madison Square Garden rally.
I was front row, man. Front row. Wow. The second to front row. I was in the common folks seats. I didn't have a VIP ticket, but I went and waited there with my buddy Mike at 11 p.m. and we waited in line. And I stood right there at the gate waiting to walk myself in there. And
oh, no, wait a minute. I'm reminded, actually, that you had asked me some kind of question about my encounter outside of Madison Square Garden with Jack Posobiec. Was that you who had asked me that? Or am I confusing that with somebody else?
Possibly, yeah. It was me or Will. It's possible. I was hoping that, I didn't realize you would be there. I kind of figured you'd be there, but I went as a commenter.
I didn't get to meet you there.
Yeah, no, it's all right. I was waiting. I was sitting there waiting at the gate, man. I got in there. I was one of the first 100 people to get in. Well, we had spoke before Butler won. Yeah. And I wanted to go to Butler 1 with my son. Last minute I backed out. The shooting happened. And that was a devastating moment. And I know you were chasing that whole story and what was going on there. And that whole thing is the one big gray situation as well. So, imagine us, January 6ers. I saw that video. Jack's a character, man. There's a lot of characters in the whole MAGA world.
Well, he's a bullshit artist because right here he's lying. Let's just listen to this for one quick second because he's doing something quite odd here. Let me just take it back for people who haven't seen this. Jack.
Excuse us.
Jack, how can you avoid all this evidence about the second shooter? The book, Bulletproof, didn't mention anything about the trajectory.
Oh, you didn't read the book yet. Why are you lying?
Did you talk about the second shooter?
Why are you lying? Why are you going to come up to me?
See, he immediately presumes I'm lying, which I hadn't read the book, but I wasn't lying. I had heard a lot of stuff he had said on interviews and seen him on Twitter, and he didn't mention the second shooter. What he calculated very quickly is that his book mentions Ryan Routh, so he could plausibly deny that, he could tell his supporters, oh no, I mentioned the second shooter, but he knew, like you, that I'm covering the concept of Maxwell Urich being the second shooter, and he is actively trying to cover that up. The worst thing that he did in this is that he goes and tells the NYPD that I was harassing his wife, which if the NYPD had arrested me, you know exactly what goes on once you get into the police's hands. Jack Posobiec is a fucking asshole and a liar. I didn't say anything to his wife, and I didn't even notice that she was there until he pointed it out. So somebody that would lie to the police to have them do the dirty work. This guy has been in the Navy. He's taller than me. He's younger than me. I'm sure he could kick my ass if he wanted to. He's a big fucking pussy for doing that. And before that moment, I thought that Jack and I had something of a friendly rivalry going on. I've known the guy for 7 or 8 years. I certainly didn't think we were friends, but I had no idea that he would lie to the cops. I mean, it's like literally the second you start doing that, you have no idea what could happen to the other person. If that guy had called a car and put me in cuffs, you get punched in the face, you lose your eyesight, you get your head hit on the sidewalk, anything could happen. He's a piece of shit.
I think Jack should interview me and I can mediate for you guys. I hope you could, he is a character. I know from the whole Pizzagate stuff, and he went over there and shot a video and all
Look,
this.
the
And
bottom
it's
line
just
is
so,
he is Navy intelligence. The last time I saw Jack prior to this Madison Square Garden interaction was at a New York Young Republicans dinner. And I walked in there, and Jack had a rather unique lapel pin on. And I said, "Oh, Jack, what is that?" He said, "Naval intelligence." I said, "Oh, so you're recording the whole event with that?" And we just had a little laugh. I'm antagonizing him, but I wouldn't call the cops and try to get him arrested. That incident right there, Jack Posobiec made an enemy out of me, and I don't think he's ever going to be able to resolve that. But we're just about at 90 minutes here, George. So why don't we maybe, if there's anything else you want to cover right now, let's take everybody out, and then you can come back anytime. We got more details we want to go into. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover?
I want to go on the record. I do not want to be on your bad side, man. Because
You are on my good side, my friend. I'm so impressed
appreciate it.
with your attitude, your family. You're a good man, George, and you got caught up in a bad situation. And I agree with you. The pardons, the plea deals, they're problematic. We need to unwind this in a way that I'm just not sure that it can be unwound, because there's just so much dishonesty surrounding this situation. It's really a very upsetting thing. I do want to remind people to support your good friend, Julian Cater. Is that how he pronounces his last name?
Julian J6er. He has a heart of gold. His family's amazing. His father has stood by him immensely. And he's a young man who his faith in God has gotten much stronger, I hear. And, we're Maronite Christians. We're like a different breed, man. We've been through, our families have been through some stuff. We're not like the weak kind. So my last interview, I mentioned, and I firmly believe God chose both of us to really fill these shoes because of our strength and our durability. This wasn't going to just knock us down, and he's going to come out stronger than ever and have a story to tell. And really the strength, the faith in God, and knowing that it's in God's hands and it's God's will. So we're just riding the wave, man. That's how it's going to be. It's always going to be like that.
Very well said, George. I'm going to head inside, and I'm going to add the links and the information for people to be able to reach this Give, Send, Go page for Julian Cater, so people can help him. And I want to thank you, George, for coming on the show. You're a really unique guy, and I hope that things improve and continue to improve for you. I also want to remind people they can sponsor Crowdsource the Truth by going to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. I'm looking forward to all of those who were wrongly prosecuted and persecuted for January 6th having a favorable outcome. And I want to thank you again, George, for coming on the show. We'll speak to you again soon.
I truly appreciate your time and your viewers' time watching.